Well, hello, it's David Krayden here with Krayden's Right with David Krayden. And great to see you here again. It continues to be a very exciting summer, not only in politics, but around the world, everywhere. And I think we're in a very dangerous time. And as we examine some of the stories here this morning, I think that's going to be quite well demonstrated. There's a lot of very dangerous things happening right now. We're living in a very dangerous time in history. And if I'm repeating dangerous, it's because I think we're headed towards increasing conflict in Ukraine, largely because we have a very irresponsible president in the United States. And I think we have a very irresponsible prime minister here in Canada. We're looking at a food shortage worldwide. We're looking at increasing conflict in Canada over censorship and over a COVID pandemic that should be over and is over, but we have a prime minister that does not want it to be over because it is politically useful for him. And it has been now for the past 2 years, and I think he wants to keep it that way. So we'll be talking about those issues. And now it's time for the weekly roundup with Krayden's Right with David Krayden. And we've got a lot of really exciting stories to examine this morning. And we're looking at mandatory COVID testing. We're looking at how the provincial government wants the federal government to pay 35% of the healthcare costs. And we're looking at how Justin Trudeau was lampooned and attacked at the Calgary Stampede, but the mainstream media pretended otherwise. And we're looking at how Joe Biden thinks gas prices would magically go down at the pumps simply because the gas station owners should make it happen that way. So let's start with number one here. I think it's a fascinating story. If you've traveled lately, and I have traveled lately, just last month, I got back on July 1st, just in time for Canada Day. And if you've been to Toronto, it is like a giant flop house. That's the only way I can describe it. People sleeping all over the place. And not because they're passed out with drugs or alcohol, but they're afraid to leave the airport because security is anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. So if they have a connecting flight that's 6 or 8 hours away, they're afraid to leave the airport and come back to do security. So I left the last time on June the 20th, and the COVID mandates had been lifted, so you didn't have to go through with your vaccination pass. So what's going on now? Next week, random COVID-19 testing is beginning again at the airports. So if things are bad enough now, what on earth is happening? This was supposed to be phased out, but we're back again with these random COVID-19 testing. Absolutely no cause for it, and it's going to create even more of a backlog, even more of a bottleneck at the airport. And it's, if you think it's bad now, it's I mean, it is going to be even worse. We've got luggage now that is literally going for half a mile in the airport, but because it's been left, it's been misplaced. People are having their luggage disappear for up to a week. Some of it, God knows if they'll ever see it again. But this, of course, is all about creating another phony wave, COVID-19 wave. And they're calling it the ninja wave, just to make it sound good and threatening. And we're having provincial governments as well as the federal government say that we're going to have to get another dose of this vaccine. And this, of course, is all a hype over nothing. I have two problems with this. I'm not getting a third or a fourth dose. I've already had two of these things. And clearly, these third and fourth doses are not working on the latest variants, nor should we have any expectation that they should be working, because this vaccine was formulated for the first variant. So it's not going to work on the fourth or the fifth variant, is it? And nobody's even asking this question. Nobody's even wondering, why are we taking these fourth or fifth doses? And clearly the health minister in Canada has gotten COVID-19 twice this year, as has the prime minister. So clearly getting the fourth or the third or fourth dose isn't working for them. They're getting COVID-19 anyway. So why are they getting another vaccine? And why are they telling us to get it every 9 months for the rest of our lives? There's enough evidence out there that getting this dose repeatedly is highly dangerous. I'm saying that because there's enough evidence that it's not safe to continue to get this time after time after time. It is having adverse health effects, and there's enough evidence to prove that. And we should not be getting it for the rest of our lives. And this is and I am not going to go through another lockdown where we close the restaurants, we close the gyms, we all go into grocery stores with our masks on, and we live in isolation. So I think, this is another false wave coming so they can institute authoritarian lockdowns. So let's proceed to story 2. Healthcare, supposedly always the top of the mind for Canadians. And this was interesting because all of the premiers are ganging up against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and demanding the federal government pay 35% of healthcare costs, whereas right now they're paying 22%. What do you think the chances are of this happening? Justin Trudeau can't even pay his defense bill. He's supposed to be paying 2% of the GDP on defense to meet the NATO standard. He's not even doing that. He's actually about 1.2 right now. So he's paying less and less every year. And what makes me laugh is that Trudeau and the head honcho of this premier's meeting was John Horgan, the NDP premier of British Columbia. Horgan is not even thinking about healthcare. He's consumed about teaching critical race theory in BC schools. He's consumed about thinking that everybody in BC is a white supremacist, and there's white supremacists under every bed. He's consumed about racism, and he wants to socially re-engineer the province. So he's consumed about these things, and of course, climate change. There's so many gas taxes in BC. They're paying $2.20 a liter for gasoline, and even more for diesel. And the same with Justin Trudeau. When's the last time he talked about healthcare in this country? He's more concerned about gender equity. He's more concerned about white supremacy being this great concern in Canada. And he's more concerned about those things. So I think there's really a disconnect when these guys talk about healthcare because they're not really concerned about it. They're concerned about these other things. They're concerned about this climate change catastrophe that they think is coming within the next decade. And they aren't concerned about the issues that real Canadians are worried about. They think we go to bed every night fretting about climate change and white supremacy and these things. We're going to bed every night fretting if we're going to be able to pay the grocery bill or drive our car to work anymore because of the price of gas, and whether inflation is going to continue to go upwards. That's what we're concerned about. So let's go to slide 3. This was a really funny story this week because Justin Trudeau was out at the Calgary Stampede. He goes every year. He puts on a cowboy hat, tries to look a little bit cool. It never works, of course. He just doesn't blend in with the culture. And this year, of course, he was out there and he made a sort of a lightning dash through the crowd. And the mainstream media pretended that he was just mobbed by these admirers, made it sound like it was like Elvis or the Beatles. He was just so popular. And people that were actually there said it was quite the reverse. He was mobbed by people who didn't want him there and were calling him, traitor, get out of town. And what are you doing here? We don't like you in Calgary. You're anti-energy, and you came down on the Freedom Convoy, and so don't try to pretend that you're at home here. So the people who are actually there were tweeting out, he was mobbed by people who didn't like him, but the mainstream media came out with these stories that he was just flocked by admirers. Seems like the whole thing was a media event cooked up by the Liberal Party, and these were like paid political supporters. I don't know if they got any money for it, but they seem to have been placed there deliberately as party supporters to say, thank you, Justin, for coming out, and we love you so much. And he was in and out of there so fast, because he never stays around very long at events, because if he does, they always turn into disasters where protesters literally drive him out. And this event certainly wouldn't have been any different. And I think it's interesting how increasingly the mainstream media, the state media, especially CBC, their story was utterly ridiculous, sees themselves as propagandists for Justin Trudeau to prop up this Liberal government and to suggest that there's tremendous groundswell of support for this government and for Justin Trudeau, when in fact there isn't. So I really laughed at this report. So can we go to the last report, please? This was a report out of the States, which I found quite interesting, because President Joe Biden tweeted this completely outrageous demand on his presidential account. He said he demanded that U.S. gas, not producers, but the people who sell you gas, the mom and pop gas stations on the corner, that they reduce their prices, as if they could do that, because they're paying what they're selling the gas for is what they're paying for it when those big tankers come up and pump it into their pumps. That's what they're paying. And if they reduce their price by $1 a gallon, $2 a gallon, they're going to go broke within days or a week. And for Biden to not understand this, this is like elementary school stuff. It's economics 101, except you really understand this before you leave high school. It's very basic stuff. And for Biden to think that they're making any more than 1 or 2 cents profit on the gasoline they sell is absolutely astounding. But he's expecting these people to just reduce the price of gas and magically, and everything is going to be okay. I mean, incredible stupidity or ignorance coming from a United States president. And he got backlash from this. He got kickback from not only conservative news sources, but even CNN said, we really can't take this without letting people know that this is outrageous. It's just not true. And nobody really bought this. And it's and at the same time, Biden was telling these independent gas stations to go broke and to go homeless by lowering the price of their gas. It was revealed that Biden had sold the U.S. gas oil reserve, petroleum reserve, to China. He was selling the gas reserve that he claimed he was releasing in order for the price of gasoline to go down. He was actually selling this overseas. He sold it to India and China. And this is, absolutely outrageous, especially selling it to China, which is in open competition with the US to be the leading superpower in the world. And if it's not an outright enemy of the United States, it is obviously challenging the United States on many fronts right now. And Biden, of course, through his son Hunter Biden, has been shown to have business links with China over the years. So this whole thing stinks. This whole thing is completely abhorrent. And how Joe Biden ever got to become the president of the United States with a closer assessment of his business activities and his son's business activities is absolutely astounding. And the United States Congress instead of looking at the stupid mob action of January 6th, should be studying Joe Biden's business activities over his political career, which has been 50 years of very shady activity. And he should be subject to an impeachment investigation right now. He should not have sold oil to China at the same time he's going to Saudi Arabia and begging Saudi Arabia for oil. There's something very smelly in the White House right now, and its name is Joe Biden. And I tell you, it's going to get worse, because as he continues to sell arms, billions of dollars of arms to Ukraine, we don't even know where those arms are ending up in the black market right now. He's getting closer and closer to a nuclear confrontation with Russia. And his senility, his open senility, is growing worse every day. And this is not a man who should be president of the United States in these very unstable times. So I'm very concerned about where things are going globally, in Canada, and with our allies. So stay tuned to what we're writing in the Western Standard, in Human Events. Look at my YouTube channel, Krayden's Right with David Krayden. Subscribe to the Western Standard. Go to www.westernstandard.news. Subscribe, become a member. It's worthwhile. You'll love the news on there. If you want independent news, if you want a media outlet that is not beholden to Justin Trudeau or the Liberal government, that is your media outlet. So once again, that's www.westernstandard.news. I'm David Krayden. You're watching Krayden's Right with David Krayden. We do this every week. I need your support. I thank you for watching today. God bless you.